So as we've shared with you so far, the word Selah can actually be one of 4 different words. It all depends upon the context. We've talked about pause, that sometimes we just need to pause and we need to think about things. We talked about reflect and the fact that sometimes reflection allows us to really see things a little bit more clearly. And today we're going to talk about breathe, and then next week we're going to talk about praise or to lift your voice. So today we're talking about breathe, to breathe, to take a deep breath. Now breathing is one of the most basic functions in all of human life, and yet our lives are absolutely completely dependent upon this one particular simple, basic, unthought about function. Without the ability to breathe, we can actually cease to exist. Breathing happens almost automatically. Literally, when's the last time you thought about breathing? We do it when we're sleeping, we do it when we're eating, we do it when we're talking, we do it when we're driving. It just happens. It is the very first thing that a newborn baby does, and it's the very last thing that we do when we die. Yet we hardly ever even think about it. Doctors who study the human body, and specifically the breathing parts of the human body, tell us that when we are more intentional about breathing, when we breathe correctly, we take those deep breaths, and especially if we take time to breathe deeply and intentionally every day, those breathing practices, that it actually has a profound and positive impact on our physical body. And I'm going to share with you 13 things that actually happen and take place within our body when we intentionally take time to breathe. First of all, there's less stress and anxiety. When we breathe deeply, there's less stress and anxiety. There's more calm and peaceful thoughts. Breathing deeply actually reduces pain and inflammation within our body. It stimulates the lymphatic system, the lymph nodes that actually expel toxins from our body. It boosts our immunity. It increases our energy, it lowers our blood pressure, it helps our digestion, it straightens our posture, it improves our sleep, and then of course it strengthens our heart and our cardiovascular system, it heightens our focus and our concentration, and it stretches and it strengthens our lungs. Man, that's an amazing list of things, and when you think about it, you realize that when we breathe correctly, when we breathe intentionally, when we breathe purposefully, it actually has a major impact on just about every function in our body. And here's what's really cool when we stop and think about it. Breath was the very first blessing or gift that God gave to mankind. Genesis chapter 2, verse 7 says this: "Then the Lord God formed the man out of the dust of the ground and breathed the breath of life into his nostrils, and the man became a living being." Breathing is the automatic, every moment blessing of God on your life. Every time we breathe in, we are breathing in the blessing of God. A blessing filled with promise and hope and potential, because you see, without breathing, we cannot experience any of those things. But no matter how difficult or how hard your circumstances may be right now, we can always be grateful for our ability to breathe and the fact that we are alive. Because as long as we can breathe, there is the possibility of hope. There is the chance to change, the potential for growth, and the opportunity to fix whatever is wrong. And yet, even though everything I just said are things that you probably knew, we take it for granted. We underestimate its importance. And unless something goes wrong, like you have asthma, or you're underwater and you can't breathe, or you've got a cold, or you've got chest congestion, you never think about it and you're never grateful. You just expect it. Ancient Jewish rabbis and sages go even deeper, and they say this: breathing is not just a physical necessity or physical act, but it is permanently linked to our spiritual vitality. In other words, the physical act of breathing isn't just something our body needs, but it's something our soul and our spirit needs to function properly. In fact, I'm going to show you two words. The first word is neshima, N-E-S-H-I-M-A. The second one is neshima, N-E-S-H-A-M-A. The words are almost identical. They're two Hebrew words. Neshima means breathe or breath. Neshima means soul. When the Jewish people looked at these two words as they were recorded in Scripture, they would see these almost as two parts of the same coin. Our breath and our soul, those two things are interlinked together forever, because when the breath leaves our body, in other words, we stop breathing, so does the soul. And so when we understand that, when we kind of take that deeper understanding of what it means to breathe, we realize it's not just something physical. It's not just those 13 things that help us when we breathe deeply. It really is a spiritual thing. When we take time to consciously breathe, it nourishes our soul as well. Physically, when we breathe, we inhale oxygen, which is life-giving. And then we exhale carbon monoxide, which would poison us if it stays inside of us. Spiritually, when we breathe deeply, we're inhaling God's promises and God's blessing. And then we're exhaling our own selfish designs and ideas that have poisoned our soul to the movement of God in our lives. So here's the big idea today. Breathing realigns my soul. Breathing realigns my soul. And there are three specific ways that it realigns your soul. Breathing shifts my priorities, breathing slows me down, and then breathing strengthens my resolve. So here's the first one. Breathing shifts my priorities. Psalm 39, verses 4 and 5. O Lord, make me know my end, and what is the measure of my days? Let me know how fleeting I am. Behold, you have made my days a few handbreadths, and my lifetime is nothing before you. Surely all mankind stands as a mere breath. Selah. So David writes all this and he says, listen, God, help me understand how short my life is. Help me understand how little time I actually have. And then he ends with it, y'all need to take a deep breath. Just take a deep breath and begin to realize the fact that our time is short and we need to be specific with what we're doing. Now, those of you that know me know that I am not a big-time music listener, and I'm absolutely not a big-time country music listener, but there's a song written about a decade and a half ago by Tim McGraw. It was called Live Like You Were Dying, and I just want to read some of these words to you in this song. I was finally the husband that most of the time I wasn't, and I became a friend would actually like to have, and all of a sudden going fishing wasn't such an imposition, and I went 3 times that year that I lost my dad. Well, I finally read the good book and I took a good, long, hard look at what I'd do if I could do it all over again. And then there's the phrase and the chorus that everybody knows. And I went skydiving, I went Rocky Mountain climbing, I went 2.7 seconds on a bull named Fu Manchu, and I loved deeper and I spoke sweeter and I gave forgiveness I'd been denying. And then he said to me, someday I hope you get the chance to live like you were dying. It's honestly a powerfully written song. And the premise, the idea, the challenge behind it is really cool. How differently would you live your life? How differently would you make your decisions? How differently would your priorities look if you knew when you were dying? Psalm 90, verse 12, the writer David says this, teach us to realize the brevity of life so that we may grow in wisdom. Teach us to realize the brevity of life so that we may grow in wisdom. Wisdom is the ability not only to make the right decision, but then to apply that. So it's not just knowledge, it's applied knowledge. You see, when we take a deep breath and we realize the brevity of life, things that seem so important become pointless. And the things that you've been putting off become primary. So take a deep breath. Let it out slowly. Realize you've only got so much time. So only do the stuff that really matters. Breathing realigns my soul by shifting my priorities. And secondly, breathing slows me down. Breathing slows me down. Have you ever tried to take a deep breath fast? It just doesn't work. This just doesn't work. To take a deep breath, it's a long, drawn-out process. And Psalm 46, verses 10 and 11 says this: "Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress." Selah. Deep breath. Take a deep breath. Look and realize and recognize who God is. Be still. Slow down. Now you might be thinking, but Dave, if I slow down, I won't get it all done. Well, the question is, are you supposed to get it all done? Are you really supposed to get everything done, to finish everything that you think is there, to check box everything on your list? Let me challenge you with a passage from a book entitled Crazy Busy by a guy named Kevin DeYoung. And I want you to listen to this. Jesus did not do it all. Jesus did not meet every need. He left people waiting in line to be healed. He left one town to preach into another town. He hid away to pray. He got tired. He never interacted with the vast majority of the people on this planet. He spent 30 years in training and only 3 years in ministry. He did not try to do it all. And yet, he did everything that God asked him to do. You see, when you breathe, your priorities shift, which actually gives you more time. So you can slow down. So you can be intentional, be purposeful. God's purpose for you isn't to run around like a crazy person trying to please everyone. God's purpose for you is to live your life to please Him, to do His will, to fulfill your purpose. But if you're so busy trying to make everyone else happy, you'll run out of time. Acts 13:36 is one of the most powerful, cool epitaph verses in all of the Bible. And it says this: "For David, after he had served God's purpose in his own generation, died." I love that. David did what he was supposed to do. He wasn't running around trying to do what everyone else was supposed to do. He did what he was supposed to do. And when he accomplished everything that God had for him, he died. How awesome would it be for you to stand before God after you've breathed your last breath and Him look at you and go, "Well done, you did everything I intended for you to do." The unfortunate reality is that many of us are going to stand before God and He's going to go, "You had so much left to do." So now, take a deep, deep breath. Realize you don't have to do it all. You don't have to please us all. Simply be still before God and get to know His purpose for you. Breathing realigns my soul by shifting my priorities and by slowing me down. And the third way that breathing realigns our soul is that it strengthens my resolve. It strengthens my resolve. Psalm 46 verses 1 through 3 says this: "God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in time of trouble. Therefore I will not fear. Though the earth gives way, though the mountains be moved into the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam, though the mountain trembles at its swelling, Selah." Take a deep breath. Maybe you've been seriously contemplating giving up. You need to breathe. You need to inhale the promise of God that He is your refuge and strength and protection, that He is your very present help. You take a deep breath and you reinforce the confidence in the one who spoke this world into being, the one who holds everything together. He's got you. And now exhale. Expel all of those toxic lies that you've been telling yourself. Exhale all of those doubts. With God on your side, there is nothing that is impossible. The earth may be crumbling around you. The mountains may be shaking and tearing themselves apart. The floodwaters may surround you up to your neck, but God is still God. He's still on the throne and He will never let you down. So my friend, you take a deep breath and you stand strong in your faith, because as long as you have breath, you have hope. It's not over. God's not done. And you're not finished. And you, my friend, you're not going to give up. Because God has plans and a purpose for you. So you know what? Spend some time figuring out how you need to take a deep breath. Ask yourself, how is your soul right now? Does it feel disjointed? Is it out of whack? Is it misaligned in some way? You need to breathe. You need to Selah. This really needs to be something that you do every day. Pick a time, morning, afternoon, night. It doesn't matter. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes on your calendar to just breathe. To realign your soul to the purposes of God. Because God never intended for you to run around like a chicken with your head cut off. He didn't intend for you to run after things that He never put in your life. And He certainly didn't intend for you to finish life with unfinished business. So breathe. In fact, let's do it together. You ready? 1, 2, 3. Feels good, doesn't it? I'll see you next week.